Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. You can see the Scout behind me here. I've already got the lift completed. Previous video you saw me take the front end off, tear it down and do the modifications to it. In this one here you'll see me putting the front end back on, tearing down the rear end and reinstalling that rear end. So I'm real happy with the outcome. I like everything about it, the tire size, the amount of lift. It's a little bit higher than ideally I would have hoped for, but all in all I'm really happy with it. With the 33s on there, these are 1250 33s. They actually measure out to be 32, but the fit is about exact. I mean, it could be more perfect. If the truck was an inch lower, I might not be quite as happy with it, but it's hard to tell. You know, some things you get into them and you don't know what you don't know, what you haven't seen. So ideally climbing in and out of it, I would have wished it to be an inch lower, but with the tires we have and the setup that's going, it's pretty spot on. I'm enjoying it. I've had it out driving it around. Of course, without shocks, it's all over the place. It's like an old Midas commercial. But anyhow, for those of you who know what old Midas commercial, yeah, you'll get that. But anyhow, I've got a few more things to do. I've got the left shock tower. You saw me post on Instagram the right shock tower. And then I got both rear shocks as well as a brake line that I damaged on the rear during the mod process, and then also the left front brake line needs to be done as well. So I'm going to do those brake lines and whatnot without doing the brake job like I said before. But anyhow, that's not a part of this video. I'm just rambling on here. So what I want to do is get into this build up where I reinstall the front and break down, build up the rear, and get you to this point in time. So let's cut from here and get to the studio where I can edit all this stuff and get it up for you to see. All right, after I get it done, I'll come back and talk to you about the wrap up. Here I am putting the leaf springs back in. At first I have to flip the bolts for the springs so we can get the stud on the bottom that'll fit in the detent on the brackets we made on the axle. It's pretty easy. These West Coast no rust bolts, man, they just went in and right out. I mean, I've never had bolts go that well in my life. You notice here that I forgot to drill the detent on the custom plate I made for the right side, but not a big deal. A little bit of drilling. Dana 44 is heavy, but yeah, one guy wasn't a problem. Now the left side here, it worked really well. I got the right size U-bolts. It fit up, I mean, simple. Snug it up the U-bolts and go to town. The other side, on the other hand, was a little bit more difficult because I got 2 3/4 U-bolts and I didn't pay attention to the right side. Had the differential housing, the U-bolts go around the cast iron, so they were probably, I didn't measure it, but probably about 3.5. And you'll see coming up here I had to do some customizing on the workbench, but not a big deal really, but got it to work out without too much effort. U-bolts, I don't think I'd buy them again. They weren't curled completely. You see me here having to do a little bit of tweaking on them to get them where they need to be. They weren't bad, but just not how it should be in my mind's eye. So I'd buy them from somewhere else and see. Could be that they're like this everywhere and I just haven't bought them in a while and didn't know. But anyhow, needed to spread them out, get them up to, like I say, I think it was 3.5. Might have even been a little bit more. And then with the old bottom of the differential housing was square, it needed to be a little bit flatter. So that's what I'm working on here. you can see that you just put it in the vise and hammer on it. Now, I'm not a professional, but I will tell you, don't take a torch to these. You'll change the metallurgy and do yourself in with your brand new U-bolts. A little bit of cold forming with a hammer won't hurt them a bit, and you'll get where you want to go. Just take your time, and if you need, get a bigger hammer or bigger vise. But we splayed them out, got them all stacked up and where they needed to be, ready to go in the truck. Once I got the U-bolts figured out, it was pretty easy. Bolted up, went right together, nice as you please. So got the right side done, put the brakes and all the hardware back on, connected up the steering. I had to do some rigging on the drag link, but I'm not going to show you that. It's just kind of a temporary fix with a piece of pipe. So completely changed the geometry of the steering linkage with the springs now in the way and whatnot. So in any case, I'll have to custom fab something there. We're going to do heims and custom bars and stuff like that. So that'll be a future video. I'll show you what that looks like when we get there. This one here, you just missed me taking the tires off. But the rear end was just as easy as the front end. Bolts fell right out. This West Coast desert truck, it was simple, easy peasy. It took me, I got started later in the day, this project, but putting the front end on and pulling the back end off, it took me all day to get it done. And I didn't really get it done because I still had a few things to do, like the rear brake line and weld the perches. I think maybe I didn't even put the drive shaft in, but for sure didn't get the parking brakes done and different things like that. But it was really easy. But anyhow, pulled it out. See me here grinding off the spring perches, knock them off, cleaned up the tubes, get them ready to get welded back up, and then roll it back under the truck, get it bolted back into place. It was very straightforward, very simple. The rear, I have to reset the pinion angle, so I didn't weld the spring perches, to the axles before I put them in. This is just me cleaning up the grind marks in the tube so that I didn't have any ugly stuff there. But rolled it back under, put the spring perches on top, jacked it back up, and put it in place, bolted her up, and that was good to go. It was really late. I think I started at like 10 a.m. or something like that, and it's getting close to 6 or 6:30 by the time I cleaned up. So it was a full day, but that was both the front and the rear. Good day. I'm happy with the outcome altogether. Get it up on some tires. You'll see it here shortly. A little bit over 5 inches of lift. I didn't really want it that tall, but that's how it came out. And by the time I got the tires mounted and on there, I was really happy with it. So nice little project. It was really easy. If you're a basic welder, know how to do some grinding, yeah, I wouldn't think twice about recommending somebody do it. Just think about what you're doing and take your time. You'll get it all together. I would say doing the front end, the rear end, and putting all the little pieces, parts back together, it's probably going to be a 2.5 day project. If you've got better equipment like a lift and various things like that, you probably do it faster. If you're doing it in gravel like I used to when I was younger, yeah, it's going to take you a while, but it's a pretty straightforward and simple project. On the front, it was a little bit different because you did have to change the pinion angle. Actually, you shouldn't change the pinion angle because if you do, it'll ruin your caster. And a 1980 already has 5 degrees built in, and I wanted to maintain that. So in the front, the pinion angle is exactly what it was beforehand. In the rear, I'm going to set the pinion angle with the engine drive line, and it's going to be set up properly. And we'll run that, see how it goes. But like I say, this is our experimental. Going to drive it around for a while. When I leave the coast, I'll drive it back to Wyoming just like this. See how it goes before we make a decision on what we're going to do otherwise.